Beth was absolutely furious with me, her husband, Mark Johnson. How did I know? Well, it was pretty obvious as we drove home from a party hosted by her friends, Lisa and Joe Parker. She sat as far away from me as possible, arms crossed, with a look that could turn water into vinegar. Why was she so angry? Well, she definitely had her reasons. I had completely ruined her night. Quite a blunder, right? I should probably feel guilty for embarrassing her, the mother of our 3 kids. Shame on me, but what exactly did I do wrong? I grabbed the wrong key, that's what. You see, there's a rather strange twist to the parties the Parkers host, one that my dear wife apparently embraced without hesitation. Unfortunately for her, I wasn't on board with the idea. We'd never been to one of their get-togethers before, but somehow, after 10 years of marriage, Beth conveniently forgot to mention that this particular party had a rather unusual finale. All the wives were expected to throw their house keys into a bowl, and each husband would randomly pick one to spend the night with the woman whose key he drew, indulging in an evening of illicit pleasure. As the night came to a close and I realized what this party was really about, I nearly lost it. I had never been so angry at Beth. Grabbing her by the arm, I pulled her into the kitchen. "Did you know how this party was supposed to end?" I demanded, staring her straight in the eye. She smirked, showing no sign of regret. "Yes, I knew." "And you didn't think to tell me?" I asked, still fuming. "No, because I knew you wouldn't agree if I did," she responded, cool as ever. "You're absolutely right, I don't agree. But I still have a choice. We're leaving. We can't leave now. It would be rude." "You're putting me in an awkward position," she argued. "Besides, it's just one night. It could bring some excitement into our marriage." "I can do without this kind of excitement," I shot back. "Let's just apologize and leave." "We need some excitement, Mark. I need it. Just one night and I'll feel desired again, not just a wife and mother." I shook my head in disbelief. "I'm not interested in this and I won't let it happen. Now let's go." Ignoring her protests, I dragged her back into the living room, where everyone was gathered around the infamous bowl, ready to pick their partner for the night. Beth tried to pull away, but I didn't let go. When I finally reached the bowl, I made it clear to everyone that I had not been informed about the night's arrangement, and I would not be sharing my wife with anyone. I dug through the bowl and pulled out our house key, recognizing it by its blue keychain. Holding it up for everyone to see, I added, "My marriage is sacred and I don't condone this." There were a few murmurs from the crowd, but I didn't care. I turned to Beth, who was livid, her face flushed with embarrassment. I gave her an ultimatum. "Beth, it's your choice. Decide now. Come with me and leave this nonsense behind, or stay and never come home. I'm leaving." The room fell silent as everyone's eyes turned to my wife. After a tense pause, she finally spoke, her voice tight with frustration. "I'm sorry for my husband's behavior," she said to the group. As I drove away, leaving Beth standing stunned in the driveway, I hoped she would call, admit she was wrong, and ask me to come back. But she never did. "I'd love to stay, but I suppose it's best if I leave," she muttered begrudgingly as she followed me to the car. "You're insufferable," she hissed once we were inside. "How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? We'll never be invited to one of their parties again." "Embarrass you? What about how you embarrassed me by not telling me you plan to sleep with another man tonight?" I shot back. "Well, you could have picked another woman, and we both would have enjoyed ourselves." "I don't want another woman, Beth. I've been faithful to you, and I'm disgusted to learn that after 10 years of marriage, you want to sleep with someone else. It would only be once, Mark. Just one night out of all the nights we've shared. That's not too much to ask, is it?" "It's a lot to ask, Beth. This isn't some small thing. This is a big deal," I said, pulling the car over abruptly. "But if this means that much to you, then fine." I made a sharp U-turn and sped back toward the Parkers' house. Beth let out a yelp as I whipped the car around. "What are you doing, Mark? If sleeping with another man is so important to you, go ahead. I won't stop you," I said as I pulled up to the house, tires screeching. "There's still time for you to enjoy your adventure." Her face went pale. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying go ahead, Beth. Go find someone else to give you what I apparently can't. It's just an adventure, Mark. Something different. You're perfect, but I need this." "Well, I don't want any part of it. I've been faithful to you, and I'm not about to change that now. If you go through with this, it's over between us." Beth hesitated, her hand resting on the door handle. Can you pick me up in the morning?" she asked with a glimmer of hope in her voice. "No, I'm sure whoever you end up with will be happy to take you wherever you need to go." Her expression turned cold. "You make it sound so dirty, Mark. It's not like that." "It's exactly like that, Beth. You're about to spend the night with a stranger." She sighed. "It's just one night. It's not a big deal." "Even 1 second would be too much," I replied sharply. "If you go through with this, we're done." "You're overreacting, Mark. I'll be yours again in the morning, and you'll forget all about this." "No, Beth, if you walk back into that house, I'll never want you again." "That won't happen, Mark. We're married. We'll get through this." I shook my head. "If you go in, it's over." She paused for a moment, then opened the door. "See you in the morning, Mark," she said with a defiant smirk. "No, you won't," I whispered as I drove away. I hoped she'd call, admit her mistake, and ask me to come back. But hours passed, and the call never came. Instead, it was Ted Mason, one of the guys from the party. "Hey, Mark, it's Ted. Beth gave me your number. She's really hoping you'll come back. She said she's excited about tonight and thinks you should join in. You're a lucky guy, you know. Everyone here is hoping to pick her key. She's been telling people it's going to be unforgettable, and she wants you to be part of it." I hung up in disgust. I thought our sex life was fulfilling. We made love at least 3 times a week, and Beth always seemed to reach multiple climaxes. What could I have possibly missed? Despite having no appetite, I walked into the diner, found an empty table, and ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I barely touched my food, but I went through at least 6 cups of coffee. I had never felt so adrift, so hollow, so utterly defeated. I'd heard people talk about wishing for death, and now I understood why. The only thing keeping me from sinking into complete despair was the thought of my children. I had to keep going for them, to navigate through the mess Beth had created and carve out a future for us. That realization gave me the strength I needed. I just needed a plan. Beth called me constantly that day, but I sent every call to voicemail. She kept pleading for understanding, but never once did she apologize. There was no admission of guilt, just the claim that she needed that one night and that my role was to support her. According to her, they had only slept together 3 times that night, and once in the morning. "That's it," she said, as if that somehow made everything easier to forgive. She even admitted she might not have turned her phone off in time, worried I'd overheard her with Brian. The way she phrased it, it was as though she knew exactly how to twist the knife deeper. I couldn't comprehend how anyone could be so foolish. But if there was any silver lining to this disaster, it was that I now had enough evidence of her infidelity to use against her in court. I didn't know if it would be enough, but it was certainly damning. Tomorrow I would start putting things in motion. I would look for a good lawyer and gather all the information I needed. Later that day, I visited the kids at my mom's house. She mentioned that Beth had already called to check on them and asked where I was. Mom told her I was devastated and didn't want to speak to her. Beth apparently broke down in tears, saying she didn't understand. My mother reassured her that no man would accept his wife flaunting a night with another man in his face. Beth then asked if she should pick up the kids, but Mom advised her to let them stay for a few more days until things settled down. The kids were thrilled to see me and asked where their mom was. I told them she was busy with a special project and that they'd be staying with Grandma a little longer. We played games, had dinner together, and I kissed them goodnight before heading back to the motel. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. Before turning in for the night, I decided to drive past our house one last time. Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized what I had lost, something I could never get back. It struck me as odd that there were no unfamiliar cars in the driveway. Maybe her car was in the garage. Only a single light was on in the kitchen, suggesting that Beth was alone tonight. Despite everything, I found myself still caring. Against my better judgment, I parked a block away and approached the house from the side, where I could peek through the kitchen window. There she was, sitting at the table with a nearly empty bottle of Grey Goose beside her. Her hair was a mess. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, and she was wrapped in a robe. Her head rested on the table, eyes closed, surrounded by a pile of used tissues. It was clear she had been crying. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was quickly replaced by the memory of what she had done. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. I resisted the urge to knock on the door and instead returned to my car, driving away with a small sense of satisfaction. Perhaps she was finally beginning to realize the magnitude of her actions. If she needed comfort, she could go to Brian. Monday morning arrived, and I had a busy day ahead. I returned to the diner for breakfast and, for the first time in days, managed to eat my eggs, toast, and coffee. After finishing, I called my mom to check in on the kids, reassuring them that I'd be home soon. Then I contacted my office, letting my assistant know I'd be dealing with personal matters for the next few days. She asked if everything was okay, and I promised to explain later. During my last year at Ole Miss, I had roomed with two close friends, Doug Lewis and Liam McCrae. We had kept in touch over the years, though we didn't see each other often. While I pursued a degree in computer science, Doug studied business administration, and Liam went into law. I decided to reach out to them for advice. I called Doug first, asking if he and Liam could meet me for drinks later that evening. I explained that I needed their counsel on something important, and Doug agreed to set it up at a beachside bar around 5 p.m. I arrived early and waited. Liam showed up first, followed by Doug 10 minutes later. After greeting each other, we settled at a table on the patio, ordered beers, and raised our glasses for a toast. "So, what's on your mind, Mark?" Doug asked, his tone serious. "Your call sounded intense." I took a deep breath. Beth cheated on me. And she didn't even try to hide it, I confessed, laying out the entire story. "That's rough," Doug sympathized, shaking his head. "I can't believe she'd do that," Liam chimed in. "And without remorse? You said she's acting like you're overreacting?" "Exactly," I replied. "She thinks it's no big deal. So, I'm thinking about divorce, getting back at Brian, and, most importantly, getting custody of my kids." Liam leaned back, rubbing his chin. "Divorce is definitely on the table, but getting custody won't be easy unless you can prove she's unfit as a mother. If she's bringing strange men around the kids, then you've got something to work with. Otherwise, if she's a good mom, the courts will likely lean in her favor, and you'll probably end up paying child support." "I'm okay with that as long as I can see my kids often," I said. Liam nodded. "Courts generally prefer both parents to stay involved, as long as neither poses a danger to the kids." "What about the finances?" Doug interjected. "Beth's a stay-at-home mom, and I'm guessing you make a solid income. How are your savings and investments?" "I've got checking, savings, a 401k, an IRA, and a few other investments. Probably around $700,000 to $800,000 total," I answered. "Well, the court will likely split that evenly. Beth will probably get the house and custody of the kids, but if you can prove infidelity, you might avoid paying alimony." "Do you know a good divorce lawyer?" Doug asked. "One of the partners at my firm is one of the best family law attorneys in Mississippi. Her name's Sandra Simmons. Want me to set up a meeting?" "The sooner the better," I agreed. "I'll also look into ways to protect some of your assets," Doug added. "Send me all your financial details and I'll get on it." We toasted once more, had a few more drinks, and then called it a night. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of relief. There was still a long road ahead, but at least I had a plan now. On the way back to the motel, my phone rang again. It was Beth. After a moment of hesitation, I realized I'd have to face her sooner or later, so I pulled over and answered. "What do you want, Beth?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. "I never wanted it to be like this, Mark. I didn't think I was hurting you. I just wanted to try something new. I love you. It wasn't about you. It was about what I needed." "That's exactly what brought us here, Beth," I replied bitterly. "You put yourself first. You didn't think about me or our kids. You just thought about what you wanted, a special night just for yourself." My voice was laced with unmistakable bitterness. "Well, congratulations, Your Highness. You got your wish, and it ended your marriage. It probably also ruined your reputation with your family and friends. Maybe one day I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget. And I'll make sure everyone knows what you did, just like you mocked me for being upset about your affair. Let's see how you handle it when everyone hears your confession, how many times you were with Brian." "Oh God, Mark, please, my parents would be devastated if they found out," Beth sobbed. "Too bad, Beth. You should have thought of that before you made your bed. Now you've got a lie in it. You act like this was no bigger deal than getting a parking ticket or forgetting to return a library book. You threw away a solid 10-year marriage for one night of cheap thrills with a stranger who only cared about his own pleasure. How does it feel, Beth? Brian slept with you 4 times, and it cost you your family," I said sharply. "I didn't have to lose anything, Mark," she shot back. You should have loved me enough to support me and let me do it. Are you out of your mind? There isn't a single sane man on this planet who would support his wife having an affair just because she wanted to try something new. It doesn't work that way, Beth, and you should have known that. What were you thinking? I didn't expect you to be this upset, she admitted. I mean, seriously, Mark, what's the big deal about letting another man have me for a night? It doesn't mean I love you any less. I've heard about couples hooking up at the Parker parties, and it intrigued me. Why can't a husband or wife have a fling, enjoy the experience, and then go back to normal? I stared at the phone in disbelief as she continued. I just wanted to experience another man's touch. It didn't mean I loved you any less. It just meant I needed something different. Just once. Then I would have committed myself to you again and never done it again. But that meant you didn't respect me, I said, my anger boiling over. I begged you not to do it, over and over again, and you just smiled and said, "See you in the morning, Mark." You threw away what we had built for over 10 years. The vows that meant everything to me clearly meant nothing to you. We created 3 beautiful children out of the love we had, and now you've given that part of yourself that made our children to another man. For what? A good time? A one-night stand? It was just one night, she repeated, and you need to accept that and move on. I shook my head, frustrated beyond words. It was nothing less than a complete betrayal of me, our family, our sacred vows, and any respect you ever had for me. You wanted to be with another man, and you did it. Congratulations, Beth. But in doing so, you threw away everything you supposedly valued. There was silence on the other end, until Beth finally burst out, "Damn it, Mark! Why are you being so stubborn? Why can't you understand that it was just something I needed? I'm yours forever. Nothing has changed." "Everything has changed," I said bitterly. "You're not just mine anymore. I don't understand why you can't see that. I pleaded with you not to do this, and now you expect me to forgive and forget. You betrayed me willingly, and this pain will last a lifetime." I took a deep breath before continuing. "I've found a lawyer. Tomorrow I'm filing for divorce, citing infidelity. I'll name Brian, and I'll name anyone else from your party I can identify. Imagine their reactions when they find out you're responsible for breaking up their little circle and ruining their reputations. Go to hell, Beth, and take your cheating friends with you." The moment I met Sandra Simmons Eskiner, I knew I had the right attorney. She didn't waste time with small talk and got straight to business. She asked me why I wanted a divorce and what I hoped to achieve. I explained my goal to split our assets, offering Beth the house in exchange for a larger share of the cash. I didn't expect full custody of the kids, but wanted unrestricted visitation rights without paying child support. I also handed over the audio evidence of Beth confessing to sleeping with Brian. Sandra shook her head. "Your wife was careless, admitting to her affair in a way that could be used against her in court. We may need a voice recognition expert to confirm it's her voice, but this recording should hold up, unless we get an extremely biased judge," she explained. We spent the next hour strategizing. Sandra doubted we'd get any monetary compensation from Brian or the other participants, but we could certainly expose their activities and ruin their reputations. That would be enough for me. On Tuesday afternoon, I picked up the kids from my mom and took them to Beth's house. She greeted us warmly, hugging and kissing the children, but when she reached out to me, I stepped back. Tears welled up in her eyes as she pleaded for me to stay, but I told her I couldn't. I arranged to pick up the kids on Friday for the weekend. On Friday, my lawyer called to confirm Beth had been served with the divorce papers. As expected, she called me almost immediately, but I stood my ground. "You betrayed me, Beth. Now you'll face the consequences." The story of betrayal is as old as time, and it brings to mind the words of the ancient Greek philosopher, Heraclitus. Character is destiny. In this tale, Beth's choices weren't merely fleeting mistakes. They were a reflection of deeper values, or the lack thereof. She sought novelty, mistaking it for fulfillment, yet failed to grasp that lasting love requires integrity, loyalty, and respect. Mark's journey represents the painful reality of facing a partner's betrayal. His decision to seek justice, while emotionally driven, echoes the sentiments of Confucius. Before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves. Though exposing Beth and her circle gave him temporary satisfaction, The real victory lay in protecting his children and himself from further harm. This story reminds us that trust, once broken, may never fully be restored. Rebuilding a life after betrayal requires not only resilience, but also the courage to move forward, even when the past continues to cast